What if the story of mankind's origin in the Bible is merely a middle chapter in a deliberately hidden cosmic history? A mysterious beginning. I still vividly remember the moment a chill ran down my spine, not merely from the temperature, but from a deep instinct sounding the alarm, when I accidentally discovered a worn manuscript fragment forgotten in the dusty archives of the Jerusalem Institute of Historical Research. The piece wasn't large, its edges decayed, the parchment yellowed with age, and the ancient Hebrew characters, like scars of time, etched deep into its surface. Yet it was these very characters that shook the foundation of everything I thought I knew. For over 15 years of delving into ancient religious texts, I had trained myself to stay composed in the face of anything that seemed mysterious or controversial, but this time was different. What was recorded on that piece of parchment, brief, enigmatic, yet powerful, shattered the order of my familiar understanding. It spoke of conscious, intelligent beings who existed before Adam was ever created. Beings without names, without faces, only referred to with reverence and mystery. Sons of God. And they had witnessed the birth of the world. That moment wasn't merely the discovery of an old text. It was a direct confrontation with a question capable of shaking the very pillars of religion and modern thought. If Adam was not the first conscious being, then who witnessed the beginning? Who was truly the first? And why has official history deliberately silenced them? Discovering that passage was like unlocking an ancient door into the forbidden realm of knowledge, where lost texts, sidelined legends, and fragments of truth await to be reassembled. It wasn't just an archaeological find. It was a calling to question, to search, and more importantly, to remember something that humanity seems to have been forced to forget. Beings before Adam. In the Judeo-Christian tradition, Adam is assumed to be the starting point of humanity, and thus, he is often seen as the first conscious creature. However, once we begin to look deeper into ancient texts, especially the original Hebrew version of the Bible, cracks begin to appear in this seemingly unquestionable interpretation. The ancient words seem to tell a different story, a story long buried, or simply not allowed to be told. So who were these beings, these entities said to exist before humans received the breath of life? They are not mere products of myth, but clearly, though indirectly, referenced in texts like Job, Psalms, Genesis, and various non-canonical writings. Let's begin with a simple but startling question. If Adam was the first to be created, then who were the beings that shouted for joy when the world was formed? In Job 38:4-7, God asks Job,
"Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth, while the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of God shouted for joy?"
The question isn't merely rhetorical. It holds a hidden truth long forgotten. These beings were present when the universe came into being. They were not being created at that moment. They were witnesses. They weren't part of the physical creation. They existed before the earth was formed, before the sky was drawn, and before mankind came to be. This implies that the order of creation we once believed to be sequential and exclusive might actually have inherited a much older, even more complex history. The Hebrew term B'nai Elohim, often translated as sons of God, appears multiple times in the Bible, yet is rarely fully explained. What's striking is that the Bible never states when these beings were created. They are absent from the creation sequence described in Genesis, which only deepens their mystery. If everything began from formless and void, then why were there beings ready to praise when the earth came into existence? Here lies a major paradox. Genesis doesn't say Adam was the first conscious being. It only says he was the first man. This leaves open the possibility that before mankind was granted physical life, Another order already existed, spiritual, soulful, or even cosmological, where divine entities operated. Could it be that the Bible selectively tells the story to highlight the relationship between humanity and God rather than the full chronicle of the universe? And if so, what story was left untold? Why were there sons of God even before humans learned to breathe? From my personal perspective, I believe this isn't a flaw in the text, but an invitation to explore another layer of reality where humans are not the first but a link in a long chain of creations. Questioning their existence doesn't diminish Adam's value. Rather, it highlights the broader and deeper design of creation, a universe where humanity isn't the sole center, but an heir to a pre-existing order. Who are the sons of God? In the journey to trace the beings who existed before Adam, the most central and controversial question is, who truly are the sons of God? This isn't merely a linguistic issue, but a point of intersection between ancient theology, Near Eastern culture, and secrets long covered by the history of Orthodox theology. Hebrew root analysis, Ben Elohim. The Hebrew term used repeatedly in the Bible for these entities is Bini Ha-Elohim, Elohim, B'nai Ha-Elohim, or Ben Elohim, literally meaning sons of God. What's intriguing here is the word Elohim, though commonly translated as God, is in plural form, potentially referring to gods or divine beings in the context of the ancient Near East. If the Bible authors simply intended to describe angels in the sense of messengers of God, Hebrew already had the word malachim, angels, which is used frequently in other passages. However, in verses referring to sons of God, the word malachim is absent. This hints that the biblical writers deliberately chose familial language, sons, instead of terms meaning servants or messengers. What does that signify? The perspective of Michael Heiser and Margaret Barkers. Scholar Michael Heiser, a leading expert on ancient Semitic languages and Jewish theology, emphasized that the phrase B'nai Elohim cannot be understood simply as angels. According to him, in the context of the ancient Near East, this term refers to beings belonging to the upper realm, members of a divine council. They weren't just followers of God's orders. They played an active role in managing and observing the universe. Heiser refers to this as the ancient power structure of the divine council, a heavenly assembly mentioned in Ugaritic and Mesopotamian texts. Meanwhile, Margaret and Margaret Barker, a renowned scholar of temple theology, suggests that early temple-era scripture once accepted a world where God reigned alongside his sons, beings both divine and close in nature. According to her, the Deuteronomic reform, Second Temple era, deliberately obscured the role of these beings to simplify the belief system and reinforce strict monotheism. Both Heiser and Barker agree. The sons of God are not metaphors, but real entities, beings who existed before mankind and played roles in the earliest stages of the cosmos. Transformation through translations, from divine beings to angels. One reason most modern believers are unaware of the B'nai Elohim is that Bible translations over time subtly shifted the original meaning. The Septuagint, LXX, the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, rendered sons of God as angeloi tou theou, angels of God, thus erasing the family and hierarchical nuance. Targum translations in Aramaic from the Second Temple era also avoided the phrase sons of God, replacing it with terms like sons of the mighty or heavenly powers, aiming to erase any hint of polytheism in the Jewish culture of the time. Modern Bible versions, like the NIV or NLT, often translate B'nai Elohim simply as angels, a theologically biased choice that veils the true nature of these beings. Only a few translations, such as the KJV, King James Version, or ESV, retain the original nuance by using sons of God, helping preserve the term's authenticity. Hidden truths and extra-biblical texts. If the Bible is the main stage of religious history, then the Book of Enoch is the backstage, where discarded truths still whisper with life. Preserved in full within the Ethiopian canon and supported by texts found in the Qumran caves, Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Enoch is not just a side story. It's the missing key to decoding Genesis, where the phrase, sons of God, appears as an unsolved enigma. The Book of Enoch details 200 divine beings, commonly called the Watchers, who made the fateful choice to descend and intermingle with humanity, crossing sacred lines and giving birth to hybrid offspring, the Nephilim. Yet their greater sin was bringing divine knowledge, metallurgy, astronomy, magic, medicine, to humans who were unprepared. The rebellion of this heavenly council, documented not only in Enoch, but also in Ugaritic texts and ancient Canaanite tradition, reveals a multi-layered Omos ruled by a hierarchy of powers. When high-ranking members of that council betrayed the celestial order, it triggered a chain of events that reshaped the entire world. Going further, Gnostic scriptures from the Nag Hammadi library, discovered in Egypt in 1945, present a dangerous narrative for classical theology. There, the material world isn't a flawless creation of God, but the result of a collapse within the divine realm. Beings called archons resemble the Watchers, powerful entities who misuse their gifts to dominate and manipulate mankind. These texts weren't rejected for lack of insight, but because they revealed a broader, uncontrollable picture. They don't deny God. In fact, they make his creative act more epic and tragic, as he strives to restore a world once betrayed right in the heart of heaven. Buried history and archaeological evidence. While ancient texts recount divine tales, stone and soil stand as mute witnesses confirming something once happened and was hidden. Structures like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, Baalbek in Lebanon, and Puma Punku in Bolivia share one trait: they don't fit the official historical timeline. Göbekli Tepe, built over 11,000 years ago, before agriculture, features stone pillars weighing dozens of tons, carved with precision beyond modern understanding. Baalbek holds blocks over 800 tons, stacked flawlessly, an engineering feat still unmatched. Puma Punku showcases stones carved with 3D patterns as if cut by CNC tools. All of these are physical evidence that technical, astronomical, mathematical, and energetic knowledge existed before any recorded civilizations. The question is, who passed on this knowledge? And why did it vanish as if it never was? When rereading the Book of Enoch, the answer becomes clear. The fallen beings gave knowledge, yet knowledge beyond human ability to govern. Like Prometheus in Greek myth, they were punished. But mankind bore the consequence. A civilization that rose too fast and was wiped clean, as if erased from history. Nephilim, the giant offspring. The Nephilim, mysterious beings briefly mentioned in Genesis 6:4, are actually a shortened chapter in the universe's tragedy. They weren't just giants, as some translations suggest. In the Book of Enoch, they're hybrids of divine and human origin, with supernatural strength and uncontainable lust. Their very existence proves the breach between heaven and earth. According to extra-biblical writings, the Nephilim ravaged humanity by simply existing. They stole, murdered, hungered for blood and power. the world swiftly turned into a battleground between humans and this non-pure species. What's more terrifying, their souls, after being destroyed in the Great Flood, did not vanish. Instead, they became wandering spirits. In Enoch, they are called evil spirits, existing like parasites, causing chaos and manipulating mankind, an ancient root for the concept of demons. The Great Flood, a deliberate purging act. In Orthodox tradition, the Great Flood is a divine punishment for humanity's moral decay. But when connecting the entire story from Enoch to the Bible, what emerges is a strategic intervention from the divine realm. The world wasn't just corrupted by sin, it was structurally twisted by hybrid beings and misused knowledge. In the Book of Jubilees, God doesn't merely destroy. He reconfigures the nature of all remaining creatures, a form of sacred genetic redesign to restore original order. The flood narrative isn't exclusive to the Bible. Hundreds of cultures, from Greece, China, and the Maya to Amazonian tribes, carry tales of a massive flood meant to cleanse the earth after a time of corruption. It seems this memory of global reset was etched into humanity's collective subconscious. Surviving legacies and esoteric traditions. After the Great Flood, not everything was lost. A small portion of ancient knowledge, the kind that once guided the pre-Adamic civilization, was not destroyed, but hidden and passed down through generations in secret. Secret societies like the Freemasons, Rosicrucians, or the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn are not merely mystical religious groups. In their symbols, rituals, and emblems, we find clear traces of astronomical knowledge, sacred geometry, and the principle that, as above, so below, concepts echoed in the Book of Enoch and Gnostic scriptures. According to scholars like Francis Yates, these groups see themselves as guardians of memory, preserving fragments of ancient truth long abandoned by official history. And notably, many old legends say that this knowledge will return in the final age, an era of awakening. Could it be that we are living in that moment? Modern science and the matching signs. In the past, stories of gods, giants, or lost civilizations were often seen as symbolic myths. But strangely, modern scientific discoveries, from archaeology and genetics to astronomy, are increasingly aligning with what ancient texts once described. For instance, archaeology in recent decades keeps uncovering structures far older than the Stone Age, built with advanced techniques that shouldn't exist. Discoveries at Gunung Padang, Indonesia, beneath the sea off India's coast, or at Bimini Road, Caribbean, are shaking the linear model of human evolution we thought was absolute. In genetics, the discovery of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA in modern humans, along with strange, unknown gene lines, is raising major questions. Could another group of beings have influenced human evolution? Astronomically, the precise alignment between ancient monuments and star systems, like Orion, Sirius, and the Pleiades, goes far beyond the capabilities of ancient observation. These may be remnants of advanced star knowledge implanted into early cultures by first teachers, like the Watchers in the Book of Enoch. With all this evidence, the idea of knowledge delivered from outside, once dismissed as conspiracy, is now being seriously re-examined by progressive scientists. Because it seems that history is not just a tale of development, but a cycle of recovery after loss. Indigenous traditions and ancient memory. If ancient texts and archaeological sites are physical proof, then indigenous traditions are where humanity's memory is preserved through emotion and myth. And here's the strange thing. Cultures that never interacted, across the Americas, Africa, Australia, and Asia, tell nearly identical stories. The Opi speak of previous worlds destroyed because humans violated cosmic order. The Dogon of West Africa describes Sirius B, a star invisible to the naked eye, confirmed by science only in the 20th century. The Inca remember Viracocha, a god from the sky who taught agriculture, astronomy, and construction. Aboriginal Australians speak of the dream time, where their ancestors were beings who shaped the world with pure thought. All of them share astonishing similarities: the existence of a world before, non-human, yet human-like beings with advanced knowledge. A great flood or disaster wiping out the old civilization. A promise of return, or a future awakening. Are these coincidences of imagination, or a collective memory that humanity has encoded into myth? If we take these stories seriously as oral spiritual heritage, then perhaps they are helping us remember what official texts have forgotten. The Great Flood, a global memory. Nearly every ancient civilization has a story about a great flood. This is far too consistent to be coincidence. From Gilgamesh in Mesopotamia, Manu in India, Deucalion in Greek mythology, Noah in Judaism, to flood legends among Native Americans, Polynesians, and the Amaya, all tell of a world fallen into deep corruption, a small group saved through a warning from higher beings, a massive flood or natural catastrophe on a global scale, a reset of the world order afterward. Many scholars suggest these stories reflect the memory of an actual global disaster, possibly the melting at the end of the Ice Age, around 11,600 years ago, when sea levels rose over 100 meters within a few centuries, drowning entire coastal lands and inner civilizations. However, when combined with texts like the Book of Enoch, the Book of Jubilees, or the Book of Giants, another layer appears. This was not merely a natural disaster, but an intentional act by divine beings to erase an order corrupted by ill-timed knowledge and genetic mixing. Awakening memory, connecting with you. Now, as the puzzle pieces emerge from the shadows of time, the question is no longer, was it real? But why is it resurfacing now? Have you ever dreamed of structures that don't belong to this world? Felt a strange connection to ancient symbols, stars, or civilizations you've never studied? Or perhaps you've had deep, inexplicable intuitions, as if some knowledge is awakening within you. If so, maybe you are not just a witness to this story, but a bearer of part of its memory. Ancient texts once prophesied, a time will come when truths thought long dead will awaken through those known as the rememberers. You might be one of them. Share your thoughts, experiences, strange memories, or personal intuitions. Together, we are not just exploring, but reviving a shared memory that has been forced into silence for thousands of years. Have you ever wondered, if there were beings who existed before Adam, then who were they? And why have we never been told about them? If you're passionate about uncovering humanity's forgotten mysteries, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any earth-shaking truths.